السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وبعد. Tonight I have a passage from أخبار الحمقى والمغفلين by أبي الفرج بن الجوزي. أخبار الحمقى والمغفلين يعني is a book written with the purpose of maybe entertaining scholars, he said, when they have some time in that they won't spend studying al-ulum. So it's what we usually call tarweeh in our durus. Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tarweeh, something to for fun, but this is scholarly fun, which is probably not fun for a lot of people. So أخبار الحمقى والمغفلين الحمقى, the stupid or the fools or the foolish. And al-mughaffalun in this context has a similar meaning, and not necessarily the meaning of the absence of awareness or similar meanings. This is not what's intended here. It's the same meaning of the foolish or the stupid or this or this. So I have a passage here, and it's from the part in which he discusses their characteristics. And he says, wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. He says, yes, among them is a man who does not watch where he steps and trusts someone he neither knows nor inquires about. I'm not reading the Arabic in order not to waste time, unlike the durus. He also says, also among the signs is that he has no true affection for others, talks excessively, and suffers from mental dullness. Then he continues to say, do not be deceived by a man's charm or eloquence, even if he spends the night in prayer and fasts by day. If you see in him three traits: self-conceit, excessive speech in matters that do not concern him, and anger towards people for things that he himself does, that is, he becomes angry when others do the things that he usually does. This is the hallmark of a fool. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz said, whatever you may not find in a fool. This is an expression that means you can claim that everything will never be found in a fool except for two things that will inevitably, definitely be found in a fool. You'll always find two traits: quickness to respond and constant fidgeting or restless glancing about. So I'm not going to talk about this second thing in order not to be accused by people who might suffer from real conditions, yes. But I'm talking about the sort or the type of people who would not remain silent, who would not be able to stay inactive or so. And subhanallah, at the same time, it is a fact that they speak a lot, that they do not remain silent. In Sufi Durus, we tell the students that al-khalwa is an important practice. Al-khalwa means to isolate yourself without talking to people, without doing anything, only the obligations that you have to do, yes, and that's it. Other than that, we tell people isolate yourself, do not have any contact with the external world, even if it's for an hour, even if it's for a day, even if it is for any amount of time. This is the easy part about it. And this is not really the Sufi Khalwa. The Sufi Khalwa would last for 40 days with um, with certain, let's say, conventional practices that you'll have to respect in the Sufi Khalwa, written in the books of Sufi and taught by the Mashaykh. Um it is very strange that people who talk a lot are usually people who do not have any wisdom that covers or that protects them from making a lot of mistakes in their speech. Hmm. Quickness to respond. Sometimes scholars say it's just a response for the sake of responding, not for the sake of discussing what's being discussed. And sometimes scholars would also highlight the fact that this objection, for instance, which is also a response, that this objection is an objection for the sake of objecting. سراج الدين البلقيني says الانتهاض لمجرد الاعتراض من جملة الأمراض. الانتهاض لمجرد الاعتراض من جملة الأمراض. And he says this while showing that, as another scholar objected just for the sake of objection, and he says that if your motive to stand and object is the mere motive is that you want to object, this is one of the diseases. I think he meant the disease of the heart, أمراض القلوب, and it's unscholarly, definitely. Quickness to respond, yes. A man once spoke a lot in the presence of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan until Muawiyah became tired of him or bothered by him and said, "Be quiet." The man replied, "Did I even speak?" So they are unaware of the crime, yes, as if to claim he had not said much, though in fact he had spoken a great deal in Muawiyah's presence or gathering. Ibn al-Jawzi continues to highlight that among the signs of a fool is that he shows no disposition, let's say, towards knowledge at all. So they are not really interested in learning. I might add like a short hashia on this. And even when they show any interest in knowledge, they do not show interest in knowledge itself. They show interest in cases, issues about knowledge, not al-ilm, not al-ilm al-sharif itself. Things around al-ilm. The politics of al-ilm sometimes. Methodologies, and by methodologies I do not mean scholarly methodologies. I mean um, not even general philosophies. Forget about methodologies. They'd like to discuss, which is somehow relevant, they like to discuss curriculums. How to plan one's study of a certain discipline. and sometimes they become like experts. So they know a lot about how to organize the books in your study, but they do not know much about the contents of these books. I find this very strange. Ajib. Hmm. He says uh, this is very important. He says that one's intellect must drive, or an intellect must drive a person to acquire at least some knowledge, even if it's a little bit of knowledge. Uh, yes, however little. If a man reaches old age and has acquired no knowledge, this indicates his foolishness. One of the reasons why scholars might find it inappropriate for a scholar to tell people his age is that they might say, you are that old and you haven't gathered enough knowledge. I mean, laymen or commoners, they might have this sort of comments. عجيب for and if this person was too young to acquire maybe a good amount of knowledge, they would say it's impossible for a man that young to acquire all this. Hmm. This indicates his foolishness. He spent all the time doing what? Unless he has an excuse. Yes. Some of the companions had the excuse of jihad. Yes. Some of the companions had the yes. If your excuse is that you worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like the greatest worshippers, I think to me this makes perfect sense. Hmm. Al-A'mash said, if you see an old man who has nothing of knowledge, I I think no, no. If you see an old man, like if I see an old man who has nothing of knowledge, I feel an urge to slap him. وعبد الله بن معاوية بن عبد الله بن جعفر بن أبي طالب, who was a companion of Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik, he would visit him and keep his company. Um, One day they were sitting playing chess, and we might give a little bit of a context here. Um, Chess has always been perceived as inappropriate, especially that it has these small, um, يعني, something that looks like idols or an asnam, these uh, these figures, صح? Um, Also, it was usually seen as ميسر العجم, يعني the thing that the foreigners would use, uh, and they gamble, or in gambling, yes. So it had a very negative connotation, bad reputation. Scholars differed. Some of them considered it disliked, and others prohibited it altogether. They all agree that if it includes maisir, or if it includes gambling, then it's definitely prohibited. But some of them would say it's just disliked. Also, though, it's a waste of time. When we say it's a waste of time, because you see, even nowadays, some chess games can last for 5 hours, 6 hours, and more than that. Uh, and this is definitely a waste of time if this is the amount of time you spend on something like this, unless it has an actual benefit, as some people argue nowadays. I think this might change the ruling, but until then, you see, it didn't have the best reputation among people in general. They were sitting together alone and they were playing chess. Uh, and then, like, the doorman came and said, one of your maternal uncles or one of your relatives from Thaqif, an old man, has arrived from uh, from jihad, or he was going to jihad, and he wishes to greet you. And Al Walid replied, leave him. Then Abdullah said to him, what harm is there in seeing him? And um, we will just cover the chessboard in order for him not to see it with a cloth or something, and greet the man and return to our game. So they did. So the man was admitted, and he was shown the respect, or they welcomed him. Yes, um, and he was a dignified person with the sign of a sujood on his forehead. And he was an old man, and he wore a imama, and he had a very يعني, a very good beard. He took care of his beard, and he said, "I've returned from the battle, or I'm going to the battle, and could not pass without fulfilling your right by greeting you, as you are the Caliph." Al Walid said, "Yes, may Allah bless you and honor you." Then the man, after a while, Al Walid started asking questions. Uncle, have you memorized the Quran? He said, no, we were kept busy with other matters. Have you memorized anything of the Sunnah or the Prophet's Hadith? He said, no, other things preoccupied us, and we were busy. Um, how about the tales and poetry of the Arabs? Al Walid said. He said, no, the humor of the people of Hijaz and their tales and anecdotes. He said no. What about the literature and manners of the Persians? He said no. He said that that's something I've never pursued. Then Al Walid lifted the cloth, yes, from the chessboard, and said um, something like check, yes, something like your king, or check, yes, like in chess. And Abdullah ibn Muawiyah exclaimed, he said, Subhanallah, because of Al Walid's behavior. And then Al Walid said, Wallahi, there is no one else in the room. I do not see anyone in the room. Belittling the man as though as though he were of no consequence. Mm. Seeing seeing this, the man withdrew, and they returned to their game. Uh, and this was a mujahid, yani this was a man who would go and fight uh, in the name of the caliph, yes, but that was not enough. Among the traits of the fool, Ibn al-Jawzi says, is that he rejoices in the fool's praise and is moved by admiration even when undeserved. Scholars usually highlight this. They say even the ignorant, when praised for his for knowledge, yes, for having knowledge, even the ignorant uh, finds this a good thing. You will never find a man who says, I do not wish to be praised as a knowledgeable person because this is not a good quality, or it gives me a bad reputation, or something like this. You'll never find this. Hmm. Hassan al Basri said, um, yeah, when it's figurative, something like when shoes begin to clap behind a fool, he never lasts long. When people start following a foolish person, a stupid person, and they start praising him or following him, yes, and he embraces this, he never lasts long. Hmm. I'm I'm not really sure. I have some doubts regarding this nowadays. I'm not really sure. Hmm. Because a lot of people are stupid nowadays. People wouldn't notice. Hmm. Now, Zayd ibn Khalid said, "There is no one more foolish than rich man who believes himself safe from poverty, or a poor man who has despaired of ever becoming rich." And Al-Asma'i said, "If you want to know the intellect of a man in a single sitting, tell him a fabricated story. If he listens attentively and accepts it, know that he is a fool, but if he rejects it, then he is intelligent." I think this is a difficult test. Um, it's a strange world nowadays, and maybe a fabricated story sounds correct. But on the other hand, not seeking evidence for anything that you receive from others, this might be a sign of foolishness, definitely. The book أخبار الحمقى والمغفلين reminds me of another book written by Al-Khallal, which is أخبار الثقلاء. وثقيل literally means heavy in the Arabic language. It means heavy. Um, أخبار الثقلاء would be the reports of I remember telling the students the reports of what uh, like tiresome people. Yes. Hmm. And usually they are witty and satirical stories, and this sort of literature was very common among scholars and students of knowledge, and this was their fun. Now, أخبار الثقلاء, and you have another book which is the anecdotes of al-Ghurafa, the reports of Ghurafa. As Ghurafa would be witty people. I find these books entertaining, and I think I prefer this to most of the means of entertainment, especially for students of knowledge. And it's a good introduction to Arabic literature in general, because usually you might encounter these stories and similar ones in books like Al-Aghani, Abu Faraj Al-Asfahani, and books like and the books of Al-Jahiz in general, and other books of literature in the fourth, fifth, and sixth Hijri centuries, written by I can't say scholars. I would say people of literature of the time, and and these books will benefit you a lot. Usually, students of knowledge think that they should just study al-ilm. Yes, and if they do not study al-ilm, then they have their time to themselves should be managed however they want it to be managed. And I do not think this is a very wise thing to do if you are a student of knowledge. If you are a scholar, khalas, it's your time, do whatever you want. You've already established a strong foundation. And even scholars would need to make sure that they are not wasting a lot of time, because eventually they might forget a lot of what they have um, studied or learned um, in their early days. But anyway, if you think about it, spending all the time studying is impossible. And instead of just going out or speaking to people, this is really dangerous. Or going to the masjid and doing things that have nothing to do with al-Islam or al-ilm. Yes, yani, considering al-masjid or the Islamic community an alternative for uh, for what you would do with your friends if you go to a restaurant or if you go to a cafe or something like this. Al Masjid is not a place for these things, as I hear from some of my students in the West. Anyway, having fun in this manner is not really beneficial, um, and it's difficult to come back from that to studying al-ilm. So as long as you are trying to do something that might have some relevance to al-ilm, like reading literature, and at this point I'm not talking about poetry anymore, even though I would encourage you to read as much poetry as you can in any language. Lakin, however, what I'm saying is that if you go and read a little bit of these classical books that give you reports, yes, that give you asanid. For instance, the book of Al-Khallal, Kitab al-Thuqala, tiresome, boring, annoying people. Yes, one might author a book like this on Al-Wahhabiyya, his encounters with Al-Wahhabiyya alone. Something like this, يعني, would actually help you understand a lot of necessary contexts for what you study in fiqh, for what you study in hadith. You should never enter this field with such an intention, but at the end of the day, um, it will be that beneficial, inshallah. Hmm. I think we might, in other videos or in other live sessions, we might revisit أخبار الحمقى والمغفلين. And by the way, the full title of the book is أخبار الحمقى والمغفلين من الفقهاء والمفسرين والرواة والمحدثين والشعراء والمتأدبين والكتاب والمعلمين والتجار والمتسببين وطوائف تتصل للغفلة بسبب متين. A very clever, a very long and very clever title. This sort of people might exist everywhere, where even among scholars and students of knowledge, and the muhaddithin, all types of scholars, and the fuqaha and judges, and all types of scholars. I'm not sure if I should say unfortunately or fortunately, because this is a very funny topic. Um, I'm really happy because we are having these um, unplanned, unannounced sessions on YouTube, especially with the features that I have just discovered. I discovered them yesterday. That only subscribers of 6 months can send messages in that chat, public chat, and the slow mode features that does not allow a person to keep sending messages without really thinking about them, which makes him أحمق ومغفل, whose stories should be written in أخبار الحمقى والمغفلين. I'd like now to talk about other books that I have considered using in these live sessions, gathering subtleties. Gathering subtleties has been translated by some of the مشايخ المدرسة الحنبلية into مجمع اللطائف. مجمع اللطائف, which is very nice. Gathering subtleties, I thought about جمع اللطائف or something like this. So it makes sense in Arabic, one of the classical titles. In my while I was thinking about other books to use, I thought about some books of hadith, but in this case, we'll have to read the asanid and the reports. Then maybe we will explain what the matan says. So I'm not sure about this, and I'm still thinking about it. And if and then I do not like um, but they are not actually books of hadith, like canonical books of hadith. I'm talking about books that have reports in them. And I do not like reading a book with asanid and mutun unless I allow the audience to narrate that by giving them ijaza. So I was thinking about that because this is YouTube at the end of the day, and YouTube is not a very not the best of platforms in general. I'm comparing YouTube with a platform in which we give a proper ders, or in which we give the closest thing to a classical and traditional dars. So it's not the best of platforms, especially that it has a lot of liars, a lot of hamqa, a lot of mughaffalin, uh, and no one can ever be protected from that, unfortunately. So I was thinking about that, and I haven't made up my mind yet. Also, I thought about reading um, excerpts from books of history authored by Hanbali scholars. But in المدرسة الحنبلية we read الذيل على طبقات الحنابلة لابن رجب الحنبلي, in which we read the biographies of Hanbali scholars, and we started with الذيل because of the importance of this phase, this middle phase of Hanbali scholarship. But this is another topic for another time. The issue is that when I thought about reading books of Hanbali history or Hanbali biographies, this requires you to read the Arabic and translate it, and uh, and sometimes sometimes it's very technical. It's very difficult. Like in the book of Ibn Rajab, you would find a mas'ala of al-fiqh. So you will be translating and explaining a mas'ala of al-fiqh, and I save this for the durus of al-fiqh. I find this um, in the dars. I expect the student to be aware of what I'm saying, but here I have no expectations. I have zero expectations. If someone tells me how many prayers one should one pray, I would answer the question sincerely. I do not have any expectations on the audience's part. This is the problem, and then I thought about preparing something, and this defies the purpose of what I'm doing, because I do not prepare anything. I just pick a book. Yeah, this is very nice. That's it. Or something that I read. Like yesterday, I was reading things, or I was telling the audience things that I have read. أخبار الحمقى والمغفلين, I was reading that the day before or something. So it defies the purpose of what I'm doing, and this is called gathering subtleties. So لطائف, latif, or subtlety does not necessarily need to be an intricate issue of العلم. نعم. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. آمين وإياكم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. آمين. I'm not Hanbali in fiqh, but nonetheless. هذا جميل جدا. بارك الله فيكم. جزاكم الله خير. I have increased my love of Allah and His beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a result of your features. جزاكم الله خيرا. بارك الله فيكم. My son's name is Yusuf. MashaAllah. أنبته الله نباتا حسنا. He's 3 years of age and is having some struggles, but alhamdulillah. على كل حال. الحمد لله على كل حال. أعناكم الله. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ease your affairs, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you Yusuf a great scholar of Islam, inshallah. Yes. So books of history. There are other interesting topics. For instance, I was reading this book on the rulings of, not the rulings, everything that might be relevant to al-imam. Anything. Yes. And the other day, I found in my way the book of al-Maqrizi, the virtues of Al Bayt, the virtues of the Prophet's family, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I thought about reading this, but this has these historical stories that might need a little bit of preparation. Yes, or I just go through them quickly without stopping to explain everything, every single thing about the book. What else? I wanted to read other things concerning the history of Al-Jam al-Azhar al-Sharif. Sometimes I feel a little bit uncomfortable when it comes to the history of Al-Jam al-Azhar al-Sharif, because I never identify myself as Azhari. I've never identified myself as Azhari. It's a great honor for a man to be Azhari, definitely. but for reasons that I have explained to the students in the durus, it's very difficult. يعني for one to have this nisba or affiliation or so, um, unless certain things change. And without talking about the details of this, um, I this does not negate or contradict with the fact that I was a student uh, in Al Jam Al Azhar Al Sharif, and I attended the majority of the drus I attended were in Al Jam Al Azhar Al Sharif. And usually, when I talk about the history of Al Jam Al Azhar Al Sharif in public, I never mean to harm or criticize Al Azhar Al Sharif, and no one can ever criticize Al Azhar Al Sharif as a great minaret of Al Ilm, and as we call it, Ka'batul Ilm. Yes. So I wanted to read something on that topic as well, as I was reading it the other day. And I thought also about telling you a little bit about a paper that I've been writing on. But this is the academic side to my life. So a paper on um, female scholarship. Yes, and some of the sources I relied on in writing the paper, or some of the sources I'm actually relying on, have very interesting insights. For instance, th- that women used to wear al-imama, yes, and to wear jubba or um, the same cloth or the same thawb that a scholar or a male scholar or a judge would wear. I found that very interesting, and it had a context, and it was criticized by some male scholars because they look like men, and they would wear their hijab, and then they would put a imama on their heads. That was very strange. I told the students many times. I told the students, have you ever thought about what women should wear uh, when they become scholars? I understand they should even have a hijab that separates them from men. Ideally, yani, I'm not sure if women will do this when they become scholars, but I'm talking about the tradition that they have a hijab or something, even if it's somehow transparent. Yes, that separates them from the audience, especially when it's a male, when it's a group of men or male audience as well. But when it comes to the way they dress, is it just the normal hijab or is it something else? We've never found this. This is just an interesting topic. Yes, because we know the adab and the manners of dressing like a scholar. So many details that have significance, and traditions that were and traditions that have been preserved and kept by scholars. Subhanallah, uh, it reflects the beauty of this practice. But we've never thought about female scholarship that much. I rely in this paper on Sir Alam al Nubala mainly. Yes, but I have more 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 sources that I can uh, present in these sessions that we have gathering subtleties. Now, آمين يا رب يا رب آمين يا رب آمين. جزاكم الله خيرا يا شيخ بلال حكيم حفظكم الله. آمين وإياكم. If quick responses can come off as bad composure, then how do we differentiate that from being quick-witted? Barakallahu. Wallah, it's a fine line if you ask me. Yes, yeah, and yeah, then we will have to evaluate the response. So you are taking a risk whenever you decide to respond quickly. You are just taking a risk. So, now, but to be honest, I think what it means, what it mainly means, is that people have these um, objections. So responding, as in objecting to what has been said or challenging what has been said, is definitely a bad sign. Yes, but responding like a comment or or a joke or something that you say about what you heard without objecting to it necessarily, I think this might be appreciated. But to respond, as in to object, definitely this is wrong unless you sit, contemplate. Now, now, yes, I طبعا the topic, the forbidden topic, وجزاكم الله خير, the forbidden topic would be talking about al-Wahhabi. Why? Because as you see, these peaceful sittings or these peaceful um, sessions of gathering subtleties would not attract al-Wahhabi. There is no title, there is nothing that attracts people in general. Yes, yeah, and it is very strange that I have people now in front of me. So, so if I start talking about al-Wahhabiyya or something that I read about al-Wahhabiyya, this would be a flame. So this would be the flame that attracts all sorts of. Mm, yeah. So I'm not sure because I have an intention of writing a paper on Wahhabiyya, and from an academic point of view, you never attack. You just present, observe, yes, develop a hypothesis. You develop mm, uh, a point of view that is maintained academically. So you never attack. You never have the freedom I have right now when I say Muhammad al-Wahhab qarn shaitan, and no one should ever consider him Hanbali. And this was one of the greatest, one of the worst, things to happen in the history of al-Hanabila. If you write this in academic paper, it does not really do anything. This is the right language to be used in something like this. So I've read a lot of books from a Western point of view on al-Wahhabiyya, um, and I am writing something like this because I study a field which is called narratology. Yes, um, which is ironic because I am also considered a scholar of hadith. So this narrative theory allows me to engage in a lot of topics that might be considered historical. Um, I think we might save the Wahhabi talk some like to some other more private settings, because on YouTube I think this attracts the wrong audience. Also, even when I study anything about Al Wahhabiyya, I try to come up with new with new like with real contributions. Yes, I do not wish to be that type of shiuch whom I saw inside and outside of Jam al Azhar al Sharif, but they have this Azhari affiliation. Whenever the book, as I said to the students before in the Durus, he's reading from a book, yes, he reads and he explains and he gives hawash. Whenever it's difficult, he would just play the Wahhabi card. How? He would say yes, and the Wahhabiyya have emerged, and let's criticize them. Yes, now you're not reading the book anymore. Now you are not fulfilling your duty. This is just a way out. You do not know how to explain this, or you do not want to embarrass yourself, so you start saying how Wahhabiyya do not have these ulum and how they wouldn't appreciate these things, and this is the reason why they are definitely falling. Hmm. Which is true, but if you waste the student of knowledge, if you waste the time of the students of knowledge like this, I think it's an inappropriate behavior, an inappropriate manner of conducting al-dars. Hmm. So I try not to talk about Wahhabiyya, especially after covering everything that I need to cover uh, in Sheikh Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab's refutation of the da'wah of Qarn al-Shaytan. At the same time, I am tempted by having a book, this book of, I think it's الصواعق والرعود. It's a huge volume and it was published recently, and it's authored by Abdullah ibn Dawood al-Zubayr al-Hanbali, Hanbali scholar, one of the students of Muhammad ibn Fayruz, and you will be surprised that the first edition in 2022, and it says here what مكتبة الجابي, Belfast, Ireland. Yes. Yeah. This is a big, bulky volume that has very good arguments, and it's well organized, and it has this good presentation. Uh, but sometimes I read this, I say, yeah, this is very nice. Students should read this. But if I continue spending my time reading this with the students, it's a waste of time. I at some point in while reading the book of Sheikh Sulaiman, I kept telling the students, at this point, we are not reading ilm anymore. We are just reading their stupid reactions to al ilm sharif, and we are trying to convince them by quoting Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah rahimahumullah that you are being stupid and you are being wrong or so. It sounds like a good idea, especially that the way I live my life is that I do not really see our Wahhabi. I do not even see our Wahhabi. Yes, sometimes it feels like Al Wahhabiyya have vanished, and this is just in my head because in reality they exist and they are as stupid as a donkey can be, while apologizing to donkeys. Um, and you see them and you start seeing how they are on platforms like YouTube and other things, and sometimes, like the other the other week, I saw a video that Ibn Hajar and Nawawi are not Ash'ariyah, because there is a difference between making a mistake and being a mubtadi' or an innovator. Yes. And I wish the speaker had told us about the technical differences. Yes, that are not studied in books of al-aqaid. I think that the Nawawi and Ibn Hajar were Ash'ariyah, but al-Ash'ariyah are not the same thing. There are different approaches within the Ash'ari madhab, and this is clear. We have this expression, awam al-ulama. This is clear to the layman among scholars. Yes, to scholars who are يعني to, to the lowest rank or station of scholarship. Yes, so I have disregarded any idea concerning talking about Al Wahhabiyya unless something happens and I find that it's needed. Uh, and I do not think that my audience will be in need of refuting Al Wahhabiyya, nor yeah, and it's not really an important topic anymore, in my opinion, at least. Yeah, so I will never find a good um, place where I read with students of knowledge or scholars الصواعق والرعود, even though I enjoyed reading this book when it was first published. Now, I think this is enough, inshallah. And as I said before, I do not receive questions of fatwa, yes, in these live sessions. And I've restricted myself to answering general questions in these sessions as well, because al fatawi are very complicated, and I'm just reminding people who are watching this later or who are watching this now that this is not the purpose of these videos. And another reminder that al fatawi should be given after interacting sufficiently with the mustafti, with the question. And most of the time, this is what I need. General questions of al-fiqh can always be answered if I know the answer. لكن لكن I think it's inappropriate to go online like this and answer the fatawi or the fatwa of people unless you allow them to speak and interact with you. And even then, I would say maybe it's not enough. Maybe you need to see the person. So maybe you need to be in his presence. But let's say it is enough. Let's say it's adaful iman or so. So at least you need to allow him to speak. As I said, I have more questions than the questions that you have when you come asking for fatwa or so. Allah al-musta'an. So, would Rashid Rida be considered one of the hit figures of four figures for the modern day Salafiyya? Yes, Muhammad Rashid Rida. Yes, certainly. Yes, especially in Egypt. Yes, his influence in Egypt was huge. ومحب الدين الخطيب محب الدين الخطيب آه محب الدين الخطيب was a very strange person. محب الدين الخطيب was not even a religious person, so it was just for money. Yes. محب الدين الخطيب married some of our relatives, yani the daughter of some of our relatives. That I mean, my family's relatives. That was years ago. Yes, many years ago. And I know a lot of things about that. This is the reason why I would never be Salafi. I know what a Salafi actually is. And this is not necessarily an accusation of every single Salafi in the world. This is an accusation of a Salafiyya. That the Salafiyya itself, an accusation that that the Salafiyya itself is مذهب المنافقين, the position or the madhab of hypocrites. والعياذ بالله. طيب. I do not think people have questions here, so I will end this session now and I do not know Shaykh Khalid Al Ansari. Yes? No, I do not know him. Hmm. Yes. Does anyone have any questions that I might be able to answer? Hmm. If I decide to uh, go live tomorrow, and I'm not sure when, I think I might be interested in discussing uh, the topic of Al Azhar al Sharif again. Hmm. Yesterday we talked about Al Mu'id from that book on Al Azhar al Sharif. So tomorrow might be about Al Azhar al Sharif, unless something else, unless I find that something else is probably more interesting or so. والله المستعان. بارك الله فيكم. جزاكم الله خيرا. See you inshallah soon. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.